10:30 on a Tuesday night, my phone illuminated at my kitchen table in Denver, amid deposition notes and an untouched second cup of coffee. The message was from my wife, nestled in a hotel bar in Los Angeles. "We can talk when I get back Friday." I read it twice, then sat still for half a minute. The request was for an open marriage, non-negotiable. For the past 9 years, she'd been my wife. She'd just returned from a conference in Los Angeles, which I had paid for and rescheduled several meetings to accommodate her timeline. However, she was unaware that I had spent 6 weeks meticulously preparing myself for a conversation of this nature. In response, I simply typed, "Understood, sleep well." I initiated 3 calls that would subtly unravel her expectation of returning to her life by Friday. My name is Gideon Ashworth, aged 42. I serve as a family law attorney in Denver, Colorado, which entails witnessing marriages disintegrate gradually due to the complexities involved. With my experience of 14 years and over 200 divorce cases, I am well versed in every deceptive move, financial tactic, and legal loophole. I can uncover a spouse's concealed assets. Despite knowing the warning signs, I failed to perceive them. It haunts me that I, who guides others on recognizing those signs, chose ignorance. The betrayal is something I have come to terms with, but my self-forgiveness for willful blindness remains incomplete. The signs were evident, and yet I opted to rationalize them away. We shall discuss this later. If you find this story resonating with your experiences, please subscribe, share your location in the comments below about where you are in your own narrative. And if this content encourages you to view the people around you differently like this video, know that I personally read every comment and respond when possible. This channel is dedicated to sharing these compelling stories. Now, let's return to Serena's tale. Serena Ashworth, aged 38. She headed the marketing and events department for Vance Galloway Partners, a mid-size architecture firm situated in Denver's Rhino District. Her expertise was unquestionable, displaying exceptional talent that allowed her to convert even the most skeptical clients into signatories of contracts. I've always admired her abilities. Our paths crossed at a downtown fundraiser when I was still part of a larger firm, and she was working for a nonprofit organization. She stood by the bar debating with someone about Union Station's acoustics. I approached, supporting her viewpoint primarily due to agreement and secondly for conversation's sake. We got engaged after 14 months, wed in September at a Colorado venue in Leon, surrounded by mountains and an audience of 70. The initial years were mostly pleasant, though no relationship is ever flawless. We purchased a home in Washington Park, dined with friends, and traveled when possible. She desired children. I was hesitant, causing genuine tension, but we were attempting to resolve it. However, it was during the 6th year that tensions escalated, as I now recognize with hindsight's clarity. At the time, I was preoccupied. A significant case, requiring 18 months of my life, involved a high-profile asset dissolution and a contentious business valuation for a tech entrepreneur. My workload exceeded 60 hours per week. I resided at home, yet felt absent. I acknowledged this. I accepted it. Serena increasingly engaged with her work peers. This was routine. I didn't challenge it. She attended numerous industry gatherings, some that stretched into nights. Given her profession in events and marketing, this wasn't unusual. I didn't question it. She became more absorbed in her phone, subtly guarding it at times, glancing away when I approached or carrying it to other rooms. I observed these shifts. I relegated them to a mental corner I preferred not to scrutinize too deeply. Then, around 8 months back, a name surfaced repeatedly. Holden Greer. He was a leading architect in a rival firm. She casually mentioned him twice, once at a conference in Phoenix where they'd both been on a panel. Later, she spoke of him again. Initially, he subtly emerged in my weekend arrangements, much like significant individuals gradually become intertwined with one's spouse's life, unnoticed until later. Holden was involved in organizing this function and had suggested a restaurant in Scottsdale. Despite myself, I found Holden intriguing. However, I remained passive about it, because I was Gideon Ashworth, the logical, methodical man who relies on facts and records, and because a part of me wasn't prepared for revelation. Then arrived February. Serena returned home from a work dinner one Friday evening transformed. Not outwardly so, she looked the same, said appropriate things, inquired about my day. Yet there was an intangible shift in her ambience. As if one could enter a room and sense that a disagreement had just taken place, even though it's now quiet. I know how absurd this may sound, but I sensed it. I didn't voice my suspicions. On the following Monday, I performed an action of which I am not proud, and I will be upfront about it. I examined our phone plan on our carrier account online. Since I was the account holder, I had access to our shared family plan. I scrutinized Serena's call and text logs for the past 30 days. Holden Greer's number appeared 212 times. As a lawyer, I verified this count. This revealed that she spoke to him more than any other individual in her life, including me. I closed the laptop and spent about an hour sitting at my desk. Then, I did what many of my clients have struggled to do. I reached out to someone who could help me navigate this situation effectively. His name is Patrick DeLuca. He's a licensed private investigator based in Denver's Highlands neighborhood. I've worked with him on due diligence and asset tracing for numerous cases. He is meticulous, discreet, and undisturbed by complex situations. I shared my predicament with him, and he listened attentively without interruption. He informed me about his requirements and my anticipated outcomes, and we established a retainer. 6 weeks later, on the Tuesday that Serena messaged me from LA regarding an open marriage, I received a 47-page investigative report, a USB stick with photos and surveillance footage, and a crystal-clear image of what my marriage had truly been for the past several months. Holden Greer, aged 44, is a senior principal at Callaway Brecht Architecture in Cherry Creek. He divorced 18 months ago and has no children. He drove a slate gray Porsche Macan, which Patrick captured in the hotel parking structure during our stay in Vail when Serena attended a company retreat in March. The retreat, she told me, was work-related. It was at this retreat that she shared a room with Holden Greer for 2 nights while I stayed home, walked our dog, ordered Thai food, watched TV, and trusted her. However, the LA conference was indeed legitimate. Vance Galloway was indeed dispatching her for the firm, yet Holden Greer was concurrently in Los Angeles. He resided on floors above her at the same hotel, a fact Patrick confirmed upon her arrival. When her message arrived at 11:47 Tuesday night, I had already deciphered its intent. The assertiveness, the non-negotiable tone, it wasn't a wife seeking a worried answer from her husband. It was a woman who had been informed by another that she merited more, could attain more, and that the life she led was insufficient, with the man in it being deficient too. The message bore the signature of Holden Greer. I sensed it, comprehended, sleep soundly. Those were my 2 words, no exclamation mark, no query, no pleading, no anger. No, what does that mean? No, we must converse, just understood. I envisioned she felt a slight shudder upon reading this. Well, good. The 3 phone calls made that night, the first was to my lawyer, not me. From observing clients attempting self-representation, even seasoned lawyers shouldn't manage their own divorces. I reached out to Marguerite Delacroix, a prominent family law partner in Denver, who operated her office on 17th Street and showed no affection for intricate predicaments. I informed her of my intention to initiate the process and that the necessary documents were ready. She assured me that she'd prepare paperwork for the next day. My subsequent call was to financial advisor Stuart Vance, unrelated to Serena's firm. Stuart had been overseeing my individual investment accounts, ones I set up prior to marriage and continued to fund during our union. I consistently kept a precise division between my premarital assets and our shared marital finances, partly due to professional practice, and partly because 14 years of witnessing divorces instilled in me a caution that I hadn't consciously expressed, but apparently always followed. Stuart already knew the purpose of my call before I even mentioned it. He'd been anticipating this call for several months. He's particularly perceptive that way. The 3rd call was significant, unrelated to any strategy. It was a call to my brother, Theo, who resides in Colorado Springs. 4 years younger than me, he crafts custom furniture and is the most well-grounded individual I have ever met personally. I've managed to endure every hardship in my life thanks, in part, to knowing that Theo is there and will answer when I call. He picked up on the 2nd ring. It was late at night. I told him everything, the 8 months of mounting evidence, Patrick DeLuca and his 47 pages, the Vail Hotel parking structure, Los Angeles, the text message, my brief response. He listened attentively without interruption, which is incredibly beneficial during a crisis. Afterward, he asked, "Should I drive up?" To this, I replied that I was fine, that I didn't need him to come. He asked, "Are you truly all right or just lawyerly fine?" After a moment's pause, I responded, "I haven't figured that out yet." He replied, "Honesty is appreciated. Call me tomorrow. I'll be available." Our dialogue ended there, but it said enough. I wish to share with you my feelings about those 47 minutes because I believe it holds significance. During a crisis, a unique kind of awareness emerges when one has lived and prepared for situations like this unknowingly. This clarity is often described by soldiers, surgeons, and people in life-threatening incidents who find their training taking control in a way that seems disconnected from the emotions brewing beneath. That's what those 47 minutes felt like to me. My hands remained still. I spoke calmly when contacting Patrick Marguerite Theo. I conveyed the appropriate words in the right sequence. During our conversation, I jotted down notes on a legal pad, an unconscious habit that even in my own personal crises. After ending the call with Theo, I found myself seated at the kitchen table, and Emmett entered from his resting place, nestling his head against my knee. In response, I gently touched his head, remaining still for a while, bearing the full impact of it all. For 9 years, I had made a choice to be with someone, and each morning spent beside that person is a choice, regardless of consciousness. Over those years, I made countless small decisions to stay, to be present, investing in another's life as if it were my own because it was. Because that was the commitment I made. 9 years of that, and then 11 words on a phone screen at 11:47 p.m., and suddenly the foundation I thought I knew crumbled, revealing a structure different from what I had believed. This is not a detail I share often, the clinically told version of my tale. The paperwork, the lawyer, the financial arrangements, those are parts people can grasp. They make sense. What's trickier to express is that moment at the kitchen table, my hand on my pet's head, where I was merely a person going through the end of a marriage, allowing myself to feel it before returning to managing things. I believe that's crucial. I advise my clients the same way. You must allow yourself to feel it even for a fleeting moment before you begin to manage. If you jump straight into management, you'll pay the price later in ways you won't anticipate. I've witnessed this happen often enough to consider it a rule rather than a suggestion. So I sat there, then got up, rinsed my coffee cup, and went to bed. On Wednesday and Thursday, Serena texted me twice, as usual, about everyday matters. Had I collected the dry cleaning? Had I noticed her car insurance renewal? The mental conflict of someone who has recently destroyed a marriage, inquiring about dry cleaning, is something I believe will always leave me baffled. I responded to both messages, accurately, composedly. The dry cleaning had been picked up correct. The insurance renewal was on the counter in the kitchen, tucked under the fruit bowl. She contacted me once, on a Wednesday evening. I chose not to answer. The message she left indicated she was enjoying herself. She'd return home by 6 on Friday. No reference to the previous Tuesday night's text. No further communication. That implied something too. The silence suggested either her regret over how she phrased it, or advice to wait, to not push, to let me come to terms before the serious discussion. I thought it was the latter. On Thursday evening, I spent hours in my home office, from about 10 o'clock, doing nothing but sitting and gazing at the framed photo on the wall, Serena and me in Iceland, 3 years back. On a jet-black sand shore, battling the wind that disheveled our hair while we chuckled together. For years, she dreamt of visiting Iceland, and for our 6th anniversary, I orchestrated a surprise trip. In that picture, they appeared joyful, I'm certain of it. Yet this is something seldom discussed. Love and deceit can both exist sincerely. One does not erase the other. Both can inflict pain. Thursday evening, I removed the photograph from display. I didn't discard it, but stored it in a closet box instead, choosing to avoid viewing it when she arrived the next day. On Thursday afternoon, I reached out to my father residing in Fort Collins, now retired and 71 years old. He had spent 43 years married to my mother before her passing, never remarrying. My father told me once that he believed recreating something so specific with someone new wouldn't be fair. I shared the recent developments with him in a concise manner. He listened in his usual manner, free of interruptions or haste to fill the gaping silence. Then he posed, "Will you be okay?" To which I replied, "I believe so, Dad." He remarked, "You've always been adept at problem solving, and I occasionally worried that this skill might lead you to self-criticism when outcomes didn't align with your expectations." His words left me speechless. He requested a call after your arrival on Friday, regardless of the hour. True to my word, I made the call. We spoke that evening following Serena's departure to the guest room, and I shared the details with him. He listened attentively throughout. Upon hearing me out, he commended my handling of the situation. This praise, coming from a man who scarcely bestows such acknowledgments, held immense significance in the present moment. In the month since, this conversation has been on my mind. The self from Tuesday night who readied myself for a crisis I'd been secretly bracing for over 6 weeks was shaped by something powerful. It was molded by a father who consistently showed up, by a brother who responds at odd hours, and by my career that taught me to discern reality from illusion. These experiences didn't diminish the pain of loss, but they made it possible for me to endure. That's not insignificant. In fact, it's almost everything. Serena arrived home at 6:22 p.m., and I was in the living room with a cup of coffee, a habit I seem to adopt when dealing with difficult situations. Dinner wasn't ready, an anomaly she noticed promptly since I usually cook on Fridays. She dropped her bag by the door and looked at me. Her calculated gaze indicated that she had spent a substantial amount of time on the flight home preparing for this encounter. She positioned herself opposite me, not next to me. "Let's discuss," she began. "It seems necessary," I agreed. "Indeed," was my response. Her hands were interlaced on her knee, suggesting she was gathering her thoughts or perhaps about to deliver a prepared speech. Serena usually appears composed, but she seemed anxious now. "I recognize the message may not have come across well," she started. "I should have phrased it differently." I'd been contemplating this for quite some time, and perhaps the distant whine made me feel it was simpler to express it. I acknowledged her explanation. "When I'm deeply troubled, I become quiet and composed, a trait that often unsettles those who anticipate outbursts." She studied me intently. "You won't shout," she confirmed. "No." A moment of silence passed. "I believe we've drifted apart, Gideon. I feel this separation has been gradually happening for some time now. I'm not content." "You don't seem content, and I've encountered individuals who evoke contrasting emotions from you." She paused. "Yes, Hold and Greer." The name echoed sharply in the room. Her expression altered swiftly through several stages. Initially shock, followed by a hint of relieved guilt for disclosing it, then calculative appraisal. "How are you acquainted with that name?" she asked, more of a statement than a question. "I'm a family law attorney," I responded. When I sensed trouble in my marriage, I advised myself as I would any client. I documented everything meticulously. I sought professional help to decipher the situation. You see, I have 47 pages of evidence, photographs, videos, and records. Over the past 6 weeks, I've ensured that when this conversation occurred, I was well prepared. She leaned back, her hands now apart in her lap. "Gideon," I assured her, "I'm not angry. I won't raise my voice. I won't resort to threats or punishments, but I must clarify that our conversation about open marriage can't be as though no other events occurred. Something significant has taken place, and it's been ongoing for months. What you're proposing isn't an open marriage. It's seeking approval for a relationship that already exists." After a prolonged silence, she spoke up. "I didn't intend for things to escalate this far." I acknowledged her feelings. "I understand that, and I believe it too. It's the complex reality of such situations. People rarely plan for things to turn out as they do. They make small decisions, then larger ones, and one day find themselves sending an ultimatum from a hotel bar in Los Angeles, something they never imagined doing 5 years ago." She questioned our current state. "So, where does this leave us?" "You mentioned that Marguerite Delacroix has initiated legal paperwork. I assume you'll need a lawyer distinct from my professional circle, and I can assist in finding one if desired. The house is the primary asset to focus on. My premarital financial investments are individually documented and legally separate. I believe we can avoid significant disputes if we both opt for a peaceful resolution." However, she seemed puzzled by what I said. "You've already initiated the process," she replied. "Yes, since when?" "On Tuesday night, following your text." She covered her face, not crying, but appearing to be overwhelmed, possibly by the realization that while she was preparing for negotiations, the house had already been altered without her knowledge. "There's one more thing I want to share about our conversation on Friday before I move on to what followed." After explaining the documentation, I mentioned Marguerite's name, and there was an extended silence in the room. Eventually, Serena looked at me and said something unexpected. She apologized for what she had done to me, not everything, but the manner in which she handled it. She admitted I deserved better than a text from a hotel bar. I gazed at her for a while and responded, "Yes, I did, nothing more." But I meant it sincerely rather than accusingly, and I believe she understood it that way. There was a moment of silence between us, small and imperfect, yet significant by most standards. It was perhaps the most truthful thing we had said to each other in 2 years. It wasn't reconciliation or absolution, but a brief instance where we were fully honest with each other before complications set in for sincerity. I often reflect on that moment and think it was the best possible outcome for our situation. Less than ideal, yet the most suitable option. The ensuing weeks were not as sensationalized as portrayed on TV, where divorce is often dramatized. There were no heated arguments, no objects thrown, nor any public displays of emotional upheaval in the driveway. Instead, we were two mature individuals who had once loved each other but failed to fulfill one another's needs, and one of us had mishandled that situation. Now we aimed to resolve the tangible aspects of our 9-year shared life as swiftly and smoothly as possible. Serena stayed in the guest room for 3 weeks until she found an apartment. She secured a place in Capitol Hill, approximately 10 minutes from where Holden Greer resided, a fact I acknowledged, then released because it no longer concerned me. We distributed possessions with minimal discord. She retained the jointly owned furniture. Kept the 8-year-old golden retriever dog named Emmett, who had been more mine than hers during the period of our separation. Emmett seemed puzzled by the changes but adapted, as dogs do, by staying close to me from one room to another. Emmett's loyalty during that time was comforting to me, and I admit it without hesitation. The house was put up for sale in April, and we divided the equity. My thorough records of my premarital contribution to the down payment enabled a fair division based on actual history instead of a 50-50 split by default. This is why keeping accurate records matters, a lesson I often share with my clients, which I had followed, almost instinctively, for nearly a decade. The divorce was finalized in early July, just 5 months after the text to signature. Quick, by any standard. Quick because we were both honest about the situation and neither wanted to worsen it. Regarding Holden Greer, you might be curious about my connection. I didn't contact him, send messages, or visited places he was. I also didn't make any professional moves against him as he wasn't involved in anything illegal or my business. Serena took responsibility for the decisions she made within our marriage, and Holden Greer was not an issue I needed to address. From what I gather through shared professional circles in Denver's architecture and real estate sectors, their relationship persisted for a few months before it concluded discreetly. I'm unaware of the specifics and chose not to inquire. I wish neither Serena nor Holden Greer any ill will. All I desire is to disassociate myself from their narrative now. In August, I moved to a new residence in Cherry Creek North, a more compact and peaceful dwelling compared to my previous home, which felt only partially mine. I retain the items of personal significance. My possessions include books, kitchen equipment I've used for cooking throughout my life, an old writing desk belonging to my father which I acquired when I was 23 years old. Everything else has new furniture now. The sensation of starting over is unique and peculiar. When I purchased groceries for the first time for a kitchen solely mine, I lingered in the produce section for roughly 4 minutes more than necessary, recognizing that I was only buying food I genuinely desired. This may seem insignificant, however it wasn't. People have often asked me, colleagues, friends, even clients who learned about my circumstances, how I managed to remain composed throughout everything, and how I could keep myself under control when I told my wife that I had already begun the process. It appeared calm from an external perspective, and I knew precisely how to present such an image. However, it wasn't a state of calmness. Rather, I knew how to portray it convincingly. Inside, I am still dealing with unresolved issues under counseling from Dr. Angela Forsyth since March. She has helped me realize that external competence doesn't equate to internal processing, which was surprising at 42. What I now comprehend, personally, is that when Serena sent the text, a part of me already recognized the marriage's demise, not because of the text specifically. The text merely represented the culmination of something that had been deteriorating for far longer. The ultimate breakdown occurred gradually, over months and years, in seemingly insignificant instances of disconnect that neither of us acknowledged until it was too late. This is what people don't warn you about the conclusion of a long-term relationship. It doesn't end at the moment of a dramatic event. It ended innumerable times before that, in countless silent moments. The significant moment comes when you finally cease feigning otherwise. At 42 years old, I have Emmett who rests at my bed's foot until one of us departs. I am blessed with my brother Theo, who visited from Colorado Springs weeks after Serena left and assisted me in moving furniture without asking intrusive questions I wasn't prepared to answer. I possess work that challenges and rewards me, even on the challenging days. I own a kitchen table and an apartment where I dine almost every evening, and surprisingly, it is often more than satisfactory. I won't mislead you into thinking I've reached a radiant state of completeness and gratitude. I don't subscribe to those narratives. I trust in the gradual amassing of ordinary mornings. I believe in the type of healing that doesn't appear extraordinary from the outside, where you merely awaken one day realizing you navigated the entire day without being startled by an unexpected event. That fated day arrives. It has arrived for me, and it will arrive for whoever reads this. The wisdom I take with me into the next phase of my life is this: I am comfortable in my solitude, a truth I had momentarily forgotten for a few years. In times of insurmountable difficulty, I chose what was suitable for the life I desired, rather than for the facade of a life I believed I was supposed to maintain. For a substantial period of my life, I loved Serena sincerely and wholeheartedly. The love I felt for her was genuine and significant, and I will carry it with reverence, not resentment. I now comprehend, in a way that I didn't fully grasp before, why some clients thank me not merely for the legal work, but for seeing them without prejudice when their lives are fragmented. I recognize the price one pays to confront someone and confess that the structure they built no longer stands. It holds everything and nothing concurrently, yet one endures it. I acknowledge this, for I have 11 words. I desire an open marriage. This is non-negotiable. We can discuss when I return Friday. 2 words back. Understood. Sleep well. Then 47 minutes of phone calls that initiated the subsequent chapter of my life in silence. I am unsure what Serena anticipated. Perhaps she expected pleading. Maybe she expected fury. Or perhaps, on some level, she expected me to battle for something we both had not fully participated in for years. What she received instead was a spouse who had spent 14 years instructing others on self-protection, and finally, applied that wisdom to himself. Some lessons take longer than necessary. That's all right. The crucial aspect is learning them.